Thank you all again, like I said, for joining today. We are at the virtual awards ceremony for our Winter Member Show 2025. You're joined today by myself. I am Amani Freeman, the exhibitions manager for the Maryland Federation of Art, and I am joined today by Juliana Oakes, who is our gallery assistant, who's running point from Circle Gallery. So just a few words about MFA and what we do. The MFA is a visual nonprofit organization that hosts more than 40 exhibitions every year. Our mission is to make connections in the local and online communities through art, with exhibits and events in Circle Gallery in Annapolis, Maryland, online and in numerous alternative venues. We provide artists of all genres, medias, and backgrounds with the opportunity to exhibit works selected by professionally credentialed jurors and to be recognized with monetary awards. Artists do not have to be members to enter our exhibitions. However, members do have several advantages, such as lesser entry fees, access to networking and additional exhibition opportunities. And if you're interested in learning more about becoming a member, please, we invite you to visit our membership page on our website, and the link is found below. So today, well, we're going to be talking, of course, about the Winter Member Show, which just a few words to preface it. We invited all MFA members residing in any of the states and or territories of the US, Canada, and Mexico to enter this show. Any original 2D or 3D work was considered, and works selected by our juror, Mr. Robert Brinkerhoff, are currently being exhibited in the Circle Gallery, excuse me, from January 3rd to the 25th, which we will be having a closing reception on that day. So if you're able and willing, please come and join us to celebrate this exhibition. So a few words on our juror. And I invite you to please go to our website to read his full bio. He's a very interesting man, and he also has provided us with a statement about the exhibition. So I invite you to check that out as well. But a few words. Mr. Brinkerhoff was born in Okinawa, Japan, and raised in Virginia, and has been teaching illustration at RISD since 1996, focusing on the integration of illustration and design. He has worked with prestigious clients such as MIT, Brown University, and national magazines, and his work has been recognized in multiple competitions and annuals. Mr. Brinkerhoff has exhibited internationally and received artist residencies in the US, Italy, and Ireland, and has held leadership roles in RISD's European Honors Program in Rome. Now at this point, I'm going to hand over the floor to Mr. Brinkerhoff himself, and he will say a few words in introduction.
So thanks so much to everyone, and especially to you, Amani, for your expertise in managing the call for entries, the jury process, and of course for staging this vibrant show of work for this year's exhibition at the MFA Circle Gallery. I was honored to have been asked to judge the show, and I was thankful for the opportunity to take in the many, many, many impressive works that were submitted. I'll just preface the presentation with a little about myself to provide a bit more specific context. As Amani said, I've been a professor at Rhode Island School of Design for almost 30 years, and I'm currently the head of RISD's illustration department. Previously, I served as Dean of Fine Arts, overseeing 10 fine arts departments in that division, and I was chief critic for the European Honors Program in Rome that was sponsored by RISD. While I'm primarily an illustrator, I'm presently writing an illustrated primer for newcomers to Dante's Inferno, and this is a subject I've been engrossed in for the past several years. I started the project in 2016, and I've just finished all the drawings. Now I'm writing a book that is scheduled for publication in spring 2027. So just some thoughts on this whole process and what it was like as a juror. I think assembling an exhibition of 62 works from more than 279 really exuberant submissions. I responded, of course, subjectively to a wide variety of artistic intentions, but with an eye to broader appeal. I'm not entirely sure why artists make decisions all the time, but I was impressed by some noticeable patterns in the pieces that were submitted. There were striking consistencies among many works. Subjects composed in profile, human and otherwise, appeared numerous times. And this really struck me as just something really, notable that I would never have noticed probably had I not been looking at 279 different pieces of work. Material metaphor was central to a large number of works, and natural phenomena in the world around us really seemed to arouse curiosity and awe among several artists. While every one of the submissions commands attention and deserves recognition, what's been assembled represents a sampling of approaches to art making that align, although sometimes only inferentially, with the exhibition's themes. Those themes are communal meaning, openness, and stickiness. Visual experience, no matter how conceptual, is not always perfectly aligned with this sort of taxonomy, so I often allowed my aesthetic appreciation to take the lead in my selection of the works included in the show. Communal meaning can resonate in many modalities, whether through the open-ended sensual appeal of abstraction or the metaphorical representation of complex ideas in ultra-realistic works. I think that the exhibition aims to identify common interpretive experience among viewers. Openness, another theme, can be achieved through transcendent aesthetic experience. And beauty is certainly central to many of the selected works, regardless of personal perspective. And what is stickiness? Well-crafted work is also a consistent quality of the works that were submitted, so admiration of finely honed skill results, for me at least, in stickiness, the ability of a work to impress and remain after moving the viewer aesthetically. I think that the awarded works we're going to see have a little of each of these attributes at least. Ultimately, I think that the selected works honor craft and an apparent enjoyment of making as much as they do beauty and the pursuit of deeper meaning. My hope is that the exhibition manages to elevate all three dimensions of art: craft, aesthetic experience, and enduring significance, while showcasing a broad range of artistic voices from its contributors. Encountering works of art as they relate to me physically in time and space often adds a lot to my appreciation, but my review of the work was done entirely online. I wish I had been able to see things in person, especially since the appeal of some pieces is apparently in their material ingenuity and craft. Submissions were as anonymous as they could be. Artists were only identified by number, and I've only recently learned the names associated with each piece. I do have some comments prepared for each of the awarded works, so if you don't mind, I'll refer to my notes as we continue to look at each of them. But first, Amani Freeman would like to introduce the Conley Award winner, so I'll hand it over to Amani now.
Yes, thank you so much for your words of introduction. But yes, like you said, I'm going to introduce the Conley Award for 3D Works, which is granted by Rob and Susie Connolly, two of our very, well-known supporters of the MFA. They've been around for a long time, and these awards are given out at member shows, like I said, for 3D Works. So this year, for the Winter Member Show 2025, Esperanza Alonso won it for her work Torn Apart. I am no Robert Brinkerhoff, so I cannot give such an in-depth analysis of the work, but I will read the artist statement that Miss Alzona provided for this piece. She says, "This work is a depiction of the self-deconstruction of identity. A person's face is their major identifying aspect. Here it is literally being torn apart from the inside, and only the lower half remains in hand." And I'm reading from her perspective. My work in sculpture focuses on representations of concepts and qualities of humanness, working primarily in metal renders weight and material presence that I find particularly engaging. Seeing my works, I wish viewers to find resonance and relevance of being human, as I express in physical form facets, abstractions, and iterations centering around the mind and body connection of the human experience. So, like I said, thank you so much to Miss Rob and Susie Conley for giving this award. And congratulations to Miss Alzona, but I'm going to pass it back over to Mr. Brinkerhoff as we get into our awards for the exhibition.
We'll start with the honorable mention works. First of all, it was really difficult to make these decisions. It was very difficult to hone the work to only 62 or so pieces. And then I had to try to work in my, sort of rubric of consideration those conceptual themes that we were addressing. So the first is this really beautiful photograph by Richard Weiblinger. It's called Ethereal Landscape 1215. Here's some things I said about it. There are so many ways to approach photography, and there's a legacy of great work in the landscape tradition. This photograph is moving to me on many levels. Technically, it's got a great deal of merit as a good print, and the most curious thing about it has stuck with me. Are the mountains refracted naturally through dense fog, or is that a result of double exposure? I really like how Richard is presenting the intersection of these two things, optics in nature and in the art of photography. It's also a really perplexing scene of great natural beauty. Let's move on to the next one. Another honorable mention. This is by Nancy Keene Fishel, and the title is Family Outing. This is a block print from 4 separate blocks. Lots of things come together in this print. Not only is there a brilliant kinetic energy expressed by the various fragmentations of individual figures, reminiscent of both Edward Muybridge's motion photographs and David Hockney's collages, but I cannot help but wonder about the relationship between the subject matter, a family out on a walk, and the manner of representation, each in their own space. What does this suggest? It could be just a cool and dynamic way of indicating the energy of moving figures. Alternatively, I like to think that it could be suggesting a fragmentation within the family itself. I really have no idea if these were Nancy's intentions, but this was an example of a couple of the themes in the exhibition to me. Openness, and by this I mean openness to interpretation, and communal meaning are their collective common ways of interpreting this image. Another honorable mention, a beautiful watercolor painting entitled Pathways by Stacy Lund Levy. What a beautiful painting this is. I think I was most impressed by the practiced experience that Stacy is exhibiting here. The control over something as fickle as pigment and water to create a stunning, intricate study of the trees and the atmospheric clouds behind them. But this is also an example of how a title can affect interpretation. Calling this painting Pathways instead of something more objectively accurate like branches suggests a metaphorical intention. Pathways of what? The organic history of the tree itself, the tree as a reflection of human experience. This prompting of questions of meaning in what is otherwise a gorgeous watercolor study are really interesting to me. Next, we have a monotype print by Michael Long. I really admire the complexity of Michael's abstract monotype collage. Monotype is extremely tricky. There's plenty of luck tossed into the making of a good improvised print. It appears that Michael has combined chance methods in printmaking with carefully orchestrated use of collage, resulting in a harmonious composition with many smart decisions along the way. The subtlety of low-key color and organic abstract forms are complemented by richly textured surfaces and sharp edges, and I really enjoyed how thoroughly worked the surface has become. It's a lovely abstract work that I appreciate a lot, especially in what it achieves through a multi-stage process. Jurors Choice, Hyunsuk Erickson. Did I get the title correct in this Thingumabob pop star? No, it's Follow Me. It's from a series called Thingumabob. Anthropomorphic art is always a draw for me when we encounter a work of art that mirrors our own experience proportionally in movement, in character, in spirit. Empathy is established. And this work really delighted me, as did another submission by Hyunsuk, in its whimsy and animated energy. It's figurative without resembling any one in particular, but with a definite nod to characters. In addition to its wonderful embodiment of musicality and wit, the textile elements of the work are so beautifully controlled and well realized. I'm unsure if this is a knitted or crocheted piece, but its craftsmanship is really extraordinary. Another Jurors Choice piece. This is by Esperanza Alzona. It's called Caged Heart. This is a piece made of cast aluminum. Thematically, I saw many lovely works that made statements through metaphorical imagery of the human body in tandem with the physical materiality of the work. There's something fundamentally appealing and meaningful in the body as a subject, because we all exist inside our own bag of bones and are constantly reconciling those two parts of us, mind and body. In this work by Esperanza Alzona, I was impressed by the incisive cuts on the softly modeled surface and how these two fundamental elements of the work spoke to one another. It seems to reference classical ideals of beauty, and in presenting that paradigm of physical perfection as weakened or hindered in a poetic way, there's a poignancy about this. I really enjoyed the velvety surface of the realistically cast aluminum torso, interrupted by the iconic and even painfully sliced bars. Next one is another Jurors Choice by Nada Romanos Abizaid. And this one, its French title, which I can't pronounce, translates as This Is Not a Cloud. I have to say, I'm a complete disaster when working in 3 dimensions. Everything I do is 2-dimensional. So I'm truly awed by artists like Nada who can engineer work in the round, transcending materiality and gravity with elegance and intelligence. Here's an example of work that's both witty and gorgeously crafted, with a nod to art historical precedents. The title of this work translates as This Is Not a Cloud, and while it might be appreciated solely for its expert craft, I loved the questions it presented about perception, illusion, and representation. In the same way that millions of water droplets come together in these things we call clouds, clay can be fashioned to present illusions of recognizable form in space. And a cup, I think it's a cup, can be a cup and a cloud. I guess I just liked the way Nada was recalling important conversations about art and perception that are still important today. And finally, we have the work that is awarded Best in Show by Christopher Winslow. Its title is Terra Vegas. I was struck by many things about this exquisitely crafted painting. Besides being beautifully executed, the vulnerability of the subject is a pronounced aspect of its appeal. There's a powerful sense of personal history in the semi-mystical figure. The subject is presented in profile, looking beyond the visual field while simultaneously seen by us as viewers. That alone enhances his vulnerability and dignity, but subtle details are really brilliant. There's a slight differentiation of skin tone, a head and neck that have a history in the sun, but a body with pale skin that is marked in a different way. There's so many wonderful elements that Christopher has put in play here. An iconic tattoo on the arm, snow-covered mountains in the back, and a terrific dialogue with the title, Terra Vegas, which is Latin for wandering land. It's a really simple painting in the formal sense, but there's a lot of complexity in the collection of signs that it delivers. So that is the scope of work that I ultimately awarded in the exhibition. The whole show is wonderful. All of the work that was submitted was really terrific. And again, it was a very difficult set of choices to make, but it was an absolute pleasure looking at all of it. And I really do appreciate the opportunity it provided me. So that's it for my part at this point. Amani?
Yes, thank you so much for your insight. This is just an overview of all the awards that were given. And if we click on the next slide, it'll just be a small collage kind of showing a broader scope of the work that was submitted. But yeah, no, in all, this was a really strong exhibition. Our members always turn up when we ask them to. And I just want to thank you so much for all the work that you've done from when I first contacted you up until today. Just you've been a supreme professional, and working with you has been such a pleasure.
It was a delight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Before we get into our questions and comments from the artists and from yourself, if you'd like to pose any, I know that some of you are here for the melange drawing, but due to unforeseen circumstances, that is being rescheduled. We will be emailing you all this week to let you know whenabouts you can expect that drawing to happen. So at this point, we're opening up the floor for questions and comments. As you all can tell, Mr. Brinkerhoff knows his stuff and he's willing to talk about it. So now is the time. If you just have a comment or a question, you can drop it in the chat. You can unmute yourself, but now is the time. And Mr. Brinkerhoff, I know that we have some of the award winners here. If you want to ask them questions, please feel free to. But yeah, now is the time to have an open dialogue.
I do have a question about how the theme evolved. I'm just curious to know how you came to those three particular ideas as the theme, Amani.
Oh, stickiness, communal meaning, and oh yeah, well, so those we kind of so our message at the MFA is to connect people through art. And we found that those 3 points kind of relate the most to what we want people to walk into any exhibition, whether it be an online, well, you can't walk into online exhibition, but any exhibition that we host, whether it be a alternate location like a restaurant, or if they view an online exhibition or they walk into the gallery, we want them to leave with a sense of communal meaning. Even with this exhibition, we have a Friends of the Arts Award, which we're opening up to the public. When they come in, you can vote on a piece, and that piece is something that exemplifies communal meaning. Stickiness is, something that stays with you, something that you're going to take with you when you go home and maybe spread it around. You never know how art can impact people. So I think with those three kind of key points, those are just things that we hope to exemplify through our organization and through the art that we display. So every exhibition that we host, we do ask the curator to keep that in mind, just because that's part of the mission that we're trying to push forward. So,
Gotcha. Thank you.
yeah. I think Nada has a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Miss Nada.
Hi, thank you so much for including me in the show, and very honored to receive the award. And I guess just to get the conversation started, I can speak a little bit about my piece and then pass on the mic to whomever wants to elaborate about theirs. Or so my ceramic sculptural form is clearly inspired by nature, a cloud form. And it's a playful interpretation of the cloud vessel form. So the vessel is a typical ceramics form, but since my goal is to make art versus a functional object in ceramics, I try to push the creative side of it, maybe the stickiness that Amani was talking about. What would one keep with them after they look at the sculpture? This particular piece is definitely a mind bender about the container, a ceramics container, what it holds or could hold, because it's not really meant to be a functional piece, and about the source of what it could hold, connecting it to nature, to water. And water being one of the elements that is used with clay to shape and make this sculpture is another, I think, interesting point about the material and the concept.
Great, yeah.
The
Wonderful.
title,
I actually have this incredible desire to use it, though.
yeah,
Drink from it.
it is large and heavy, so it's
Is it? Okay.
not very.
Well, how big is it?
How heavy?
Yes, how big is it? Let me see.
Oh, it's about 20 or so inches.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And quite heavy.
Yeah. Wow, wow, wow.
And
Yeah, and you had another piece that was really it was similar, but it was black. Is that correct?
yeah, that is raw clay. The piece was only partially glazed on the spout. The blue glaze on the spout refers to water being needed to nourish the tree form, or the knotty nodular form that is inspired by branches and trees.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then the title, as you said, is a nod to a known piece by the French artist Magritte, the treachery of images. His artwork was called Ceçi n'est pas une pipe. This is not a pipe. And in the case of my artwork, I wanted to remind the viewer that although the first thing they see is a cloud, this is not a cloud. It's a 3D ceramics piece. It's a vessel form inspired by the cloud. So kind of a mind bender, taking the viewer back and forth from what they initially see to what is actually in front of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciated all those things about it. So
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Nada, for just talking about your piece and your process and giving us some insight into it. I noticed that Mr. Dave Mosher he raised his hand, so now is your time, sir.
Hello. Thanks for selecting me for this show, Robert, and wondered if you could comment on the pieces that you selected.
I'm glad you're asking, because I told Amani if it's been a little while since I looked at everything. So I do have the website open. Which piece again was it?
These are photographs of a woman jumping off a cliff, if you will.
Oh
and
yeah, those
woman
very
surrounded by
surreal images.
flowers.
Yep, I remember them. Yep. Yeah, I was delighted by them. Yeah. Are these collages, digital collages, or are they
They really are. Well, this one especially is really, to me,
well,
digital art. I
of
mean,
course, yeah, that one.
photographic based art.
Right.
And
Yeah. You had
starting,
another one. I guess I was looking at the other one where the woman's kind of immersed in the flowers and stuff. Is this also a digital collage or?
No, no.
Oh, okay.
This is my wonderful model who is just up for anything, and
Oh yeah, she's
she
super
laid on a
charismatic.
canvas in a field, and I
Yeah.
surrounded her with flowers, and there were bees buzzing all around, and she didn't flinch.
Gorgeous. Yeah. I mean, look at I don't know why it is, but there was this really interesting propensity for profiles. Both of your pieces include the figure in profile.
Hmm.
Something I noticed, I mean, if you look at the if you go to the website and you look at the whole range of work, you'll see so much work in profile. Now, whether that's my selection process or just a pattern that emerged naturally. I don't know, but no, I loved the work. I loved its richness of color. I think your selection of this model as a really super charismatic, unusual person really adds to the magnetism of it. They're very, very striking, attractive images. I like them as a pair, and I like the question that kind of emerged from my seeing them together about how much of this one, the one that is solely of the woman in the vegetation, was constructed digitally, and how much of it is an actual photograph. And I think putting them together in that way sets up an interesting dialogue between them. So I thought they were beautifully crafted. I think it's great that you're not trying to disguise uh, the collage process in the one that you were initially asking about. I think it's very obviously pieced together, and I think that that's part of its artfulness. Very nice. I mean, you're creating a really spectacular, surreal moment in that image. Very good.
Yes, thank you. I do feel that the surreal aspect has to look real to your eyes, but your eyes are lying to you, and you know in your mind that that cannot be real.
Yeah, I think this is what I mean though, that I like them together in that the one of the woman leaping off the cliff is, it's clearly not from reality. I mean, it's clearly a constructed image, but I like the impact that has on the other one, and the way that the two move in and out of kind of reality. I think that's great.
Thank you. Interesting. Thanks for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mosher, for providing some insight and dialogue into your work. Yeah, no, your images are very striking, so I'm glad that you took the time to let us know a bit more about them. Anyone else have any questions, comments? I actually would like to pose a question to Miss Nancy Fishel, who I notice is here. Um, One thing that Mr. Brinkerhoff said about your work, family outing, that, and this it's one of the reasons I love these virtual award ceremonies because I get to look at the work so much. I mean, I am the person that sees it the most probably, but then just hearing someone else's perspective always brings a new lens from which I get to see it through. And with this one, Mr. Brinkerhoff, you mentioned that obviously it's done on 4 blocks, and it seems like the family is almost not disjointed, but there could be a sense of friction within the piece, which I didn't interpret it as. But just hearing you say that, you do notice that, and I think this is intentional, that the blocks are not lined up. There's a disjointedness amongst the progression of the work. So I just wanted to ask Ms. Fishel, is there is that just an artistic, stylistic thing, or was it actually like you wanted there to be a sense of like discord within the piece?
First, I want to thank you for recognizing my work. And second, it's nice to make a connection back to RISD, where I got my original degree.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Welcome back.
I was a sculpture major, so now I'm doing printmaking, digital work, and painting.
Great.
However, there's a couple of reasons I break things up. First, they aren't from the original source material. I'm glad you mentioned Mobridge, who is a big influence in what I do, because I'm really interested in people in motion and creating what this is from a series of people that I just see walking down a street, and it's supposed to be kind of universal, that it could be any place, anytime, anywhere. There's a couple of reasons I do the different blocks. And I like your interpretation of them being separate, because this family especially, I did find there was a kind of a separation between a number of the walkers. I also do it because I can then do multiple prints that are done in various ways, and they are not done as an addition, but it's done as a series. So I can print each block separately. I can print them in different configurations. I can print 2 together, 3 together. So I get a lot of ways to experiment with similar images. And I really like being able to do that and then eventually come to a completed image. Another one is just physical, in that I print everything by hand. So doing a very large block is very difficult by hand. So I can do things by using smaller blocks and putting them together. But that idea of motion, that idea of that we blink and we see something new every time we look at things happening in our environment, especially as people walk by and you just see little sections and you go, did I really see that? Or what did I see? Or what I missed, is all important in what I do.
Definitely. Wow. Do you feel a connection to your sculpture work earlier in the modularity of your process, meaning, creating different physical objects that ultimately can be rearranged in different ways in the printmaking process?
What I really feel with the connection to sculpture, because I was a carver on the whole, then I was a professional cabinet maker. I don't know what I wanted to be when I grow up, or if I grow up. But I like the physicality of printmaking. I like the physicality of carving. I like the physicality of actually doing the print. I can modulate and I can play things together. So it's still a physical process, as opposed to a lot of my work is based originally on digital artwork. And then I'll reinterpret it into print. So going from something that is so separated to something that is so physical and concrete is a way that I relate the work to one another, and I like that differences.
And so when you say it, they have a kind of digital foundation, what do you mean by that? These are digital photographs? Is that what you mean?
I start with digital photographs. As Armani knows, and I have in other shows, I do digital painting on Procreate, and I create images that way. And then what I do is I use those as source materials. The photographs totally disappear, but I use those pieces, which are often made of multiple photographs, as source references, and I reinterpret them into prints.
Gotcha. Okay.
So a lot of
so in other words, like
series.
if you're using Procreate as part of the preliminary stage of this image, you'll paint out, you'll block out these dark areas and lines with Procreate by referencing the original photograph?
Correct. My original digital painting.
That's a great process. Yeah.
So it gives me a chance. I find that working in series makes it so you don't get blocks.
Yeah.
You don't say, okay, what am I going to do next? Because you always have a next to go.
So
you're working with these images and you're working with these ideas that can go on.
I'm sorry I'm sticking to this so much, but I'm just curious about your process of, say, I can definitely see the different blocks here. Block of the man, the block of the woman with the child next to her, the child in the front. Within those blocks, is that fragmentation a result of the Procreate experimentation?
No, it's actually a result of me playing with cameras. And I found when you shoot people moving through spaces using panoramic cameras. Panoramas are made by taking slices that they glue together. But if you get people moving through that space, you get little slices of those people.
I love those mistakes. Yeah.
Right. And so I've, when I discovered that mistake years ago, I've done it consciously now. So I'll stand in one place in one location and I'll just shoot a whole series of panoramas.
Yeah.
And then I'll pick out pieces from that panorama, and they may not have even been together. This one they happen to have been, but I sometimes add a multiple number of photographs and then redesign the people moving through that same space. So they might not have been there at the same time. So I really feel like my work deals with time, space, movement, as well as perception.
Do you feel a kind of kinship to Hockney's collages as well?
I hadn't consciously done that, but when you brought it up, I understand it.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Wonderful to hear all this. Fantastic.
Thank you for all your feedback to me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Yeah. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, no, thank you for your insight. It's always good to hear the dialogue between the artist and the juror that both know what they're talking about. It's enriching. So thank you for that, Miss Fishel.
My pleasure.
Well, does anyone else have any questions or comments at this time?
Oh, Robert, I wanted to say thank you for jurying this show, and I wanted to just, I'm really honored that I was included in the show. I really am, and I was excited that I was able to get a big canvas into this show. I very much enjoy working large when I can. I work all different sizes, but like I do love working big canvas. So I was very excited to be included in the show.
Oh, great. No, it's well deserved. You know, I really didn't, I probably should have paid a lot closer attention to the scale of things in trying to squeeze in so much work. But how big is this again?
I think that's 34 by 48.
Okay. Not too scarily big, but
yeah, not too.
This is really
big,
super lively.
Like
I love this, and again, I think just the complexity of your process and the layering and the kind of iconography that peeks in and out is really exciting. It's just something that I could linger over for quite a while. Really wonderful.
I'm an abstract expressionist. I work on a lot of things at the same time. I sort of just a sponge. I absorb things and then just spit it back out. I like it. It's sort of just an improvisational way that I work.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't I wind up in my studio when I wind up in there and I just lose myself in it. So but like I said, I do work on a lot of things at the same time. Like I destroy nothing, so something will become part of something else.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, but
how so? You mean you take things apart and collage them together, or what do you mean?
Yeah, and some of my other work, I will work like that. Collage stuff, pieces of things will wind up into stuff. This piece has a few pieces of collage paperwork or something in it, but most of that's just that's all just mixed enamel and oils, acrylics and stuff. So
is there any encaustic in this at all?
No.
Okay.
No.
I love. Is this a little piece of a Mondrian tree painting in the lower right?
Oh, I don't know.
That hatched stuff, or?
Oh no, that's just I see. Like I said, I mean, if I've got magazines, and a lot of times the TV's on with no volume, and there's never not music on in this house in my studio. So whatever is I'm just bombarded with things, and I just suck into something and spit it back out. So what I'm thinking of, or images, or connections of things, or words I just will write, or something I've heard, or something I like, and I just put it back out. I don't. A lot of times people ask me why or what, and it's like there's a famous quote I've always loved from Jean-Michel Basquiat, who is a very huge inspiration to me. That you never ask Miles Davis why he played that note. I mean, I'm an improvisational artist in the way that I work.
Yeah.
If I attach to something, then I plan out things. I will stare at stuff forever. And like I said, I work on a lot of things at the same time. my floor of my studio is just riddled with stuff. So it either becomes something or it's a canvas. I just stretched a canvas that's been on my floor for better part of 3 months or so that I've just been, I'll work on, I'll mark on, I'll write something on sometimes.
You work on the floor?
The floor, the wall, they'll be on it's both. I work all over my studio, like it's just completely in the round. I mean, if there was round, but like, yeah, I just work on the floor, the wall.
Well, I have to say, why is not a question that would come to mind when I see this. I'm just really thrilled with the exuberance of it. I just think there's so much energy and affection for the process in this that really impressed me. So yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, I kind of, it was sort of just me and the way I was thinking about it as I was working on it was like my interpretation of the world that we live in, like basically trapped in digital speed. Everybody's just like, gotta do this, screaming this, gotta talk here on computer, on your phone. Like it's not ever. It's just like static.
Yeah.
It's like somebody cooking bacon inside your head. So, I mean, in a way that was sort of like what I really, when I would go at this piece, when I was working on it, it was always very aggressive and it was always very like concise in like how I would mark at it or something, or pull something away from something, or sometimes I call the way I work a push and pull, so take some, leave it. So think about it later.
Keith, when you mentioned enamel, what kind of enamel paints are you using?
I work in spray paints. I worked in spray paint my whole life as a kid and as a troubled youth. I worked in spray paints for a very long time. I have, and I still do.
I hope you're wearing a mask.
Oh yes, or multiple different ways. Yes. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, great. Thanks for sharing those thoughts on it. That's excellent.
Yeah. Thank you again for joining the show.
No problem. Yeah. Enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. No. Thank you, Keith, for your words about your work.
Monty?
It's interesting you brought up Jean-Michel because when you were describing your creative process of how you have the TV on, music, magazines, that was the first thing. That's how it's work, a little bit here, a little bit there, do work on this canvas, come back to it. But no, it's iterative process, and it's interesting just hearing from the artists that we've heard from today and how everyone's process is so different. Some come from mistakes, some are just off the cuff, some are very intentional, so that's another cool thing about these virtual award ceremonies. We get to just learn more perspective on things.
Yeah, one thing I felt like I needed to be very careful of with this process was the interference of my own taste too much. But there are definitely types of work that I am drawn to. But what I was trying to do was, pull together work that embodied that kind of excellence, but across different approaches and modalities. So yeah, hopefully there's a good variety in this.
Yeah, no, I think you did a really good job. I mean, one thing that struck me, and one thing I really like about our member shows is since there's no, I would say, like concrete theme, because some shows is like American Landscapes, obviously that's depicting a certain, subject, but member shows, we kind of give our members free license to do whatever within our guidelines. And one thing that struck me about this show is it really has a pretty good representation of a lot of the work that our members can do. From sculpture to, like you said, a lot of figures to abstract to a bit of, abstract with figures. And it's just a really good mix. So I think you did a really good job of making it a robust representation of our artists. So thank you for that.
Great.
But yeah, at this time, if no one has any other questions or comments, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Thank you again so much. This was really an honor and just a total delight to see it all. I wish I could see it in person. Is the show hanging now or?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's hanging until the 25th of January.
Okay.
When we will have a closing reception. A lot of the artists will be there. They'll invite their friends and family. So I know Rhode Island is not the closest to Annapolis, but if you are available and able, it would be.
Is it any warmer there than it is here?
I cannot say it is. It's
Pretty chilly right now, so yeah.
Especially cold today, and we're expecting snow.
Yeah.
But in any case, I mean, if you can make it, we'd really appreciate that. But no, I mean, I just want to thank everyone, all the artists that joined today. Thank you for your time, and just for submitting your work, for always, making our exhibitions such a joy to exhibit and a joy to look at, not only for myself and the people that work in the gallery, but for people that come into the gallery, and just the impact that you have on the community. So, and I just want to again thank Mr. Brinkerhoff. From inception to now, he's been a supreme professional to work with. It's really been a pleasure. He's made the process very easy, very enjoyable. You can tell that he's been around for a while and he knows what he's doing. So I'm really grateful for that, and just for his willingness to work with us. And hopefully sometime in the future our paths can cross again. At this time, I think I'm going to close out and just tell everyone to have a great rest of your Sunday, and be safe. So
thanks, everybody. So long.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye-bye.